When it comes to the Republican nomination for president and the New Hampshire primary in 5 days, new reporting suggests Donald Trump is simply ready to get on with it, not just out of a desire to focus on President Biden, but also out of a sense of financial self-preservation. Trump, the subject of 91 criminal charges across 4 separate jurisdictions at the moment, is reportedly seeking to muscle his Republican competition out of the primary by casting his nomination as inevitable. The Times reports the strategy reflects an urgent desire to end the race quickly and avoid an extended and expensive battle for delegates heading into Super Tuesday on March 5th. Quote, Trump's team is looking ahead to the South Carolina primary on February 24th as a Waterloo for his primary rivals, according to one Trump advisor, likening the state to the battlefield where Napoleon met his final defeat. Their aim is to humiliate Nikki Haley in her home state. Joining us now, professor of politics and journalism at Morgan State University and host of the podcast A Word, Jason Johnson joins us. Amanda is back. Jason, Trump, he wants his competition wiped out sooner rather than later so he can stem the tide of cash flowing out of his campaign. He is obviously the odds-on favorite to win the nomination. Do folks paying attention to the race do him a favor by framing it that way, by framing it as inevitable?
I mean, it's inevitable whether they want to frame it, whether they want to put spaghetti around it, whether they want to put silly. I mean, it's inevitable, right? Unless Donald Trump keels over and dies tomorrow, he's going to be the Republican nominee. And quite frankly, given how they behave, even if he were to keel over and die tomorrow, they would weekend at Bernie's him and basically say, we want him anyway. They would just worship him in effigy. This is what's going to happen. The only question is, what is the logic behind people continuing to give money to those who aren't going to win? Nikki Haley is going to lose in her own state. You know, Ron DeSantis has already shown that he's not capable of being the nominee. Vivek is out of the race. Everybody else is out of the race. So it's not framing, it's not branding as much as it's realistic. Now, the question becomes, is there somebody left? Is it DeSantis or is it Nikki Haley? Do they want to be this year's, John Kasich? Do they just want to keep going just because they're like, hey, look, I'm having a good time. I'm collecting free money. Campaign finance works in my favor. That's the only option here. But I don't think Trump can bully everybody out of the race if somebody sees an option of being John Kasich. But no one else is going to win. He is inevitable.
I think we can also all agree that no one looks like they're having a good time if that is the metric we are using for continuing here. Amanda, the Times reports part of Trump's inevitability messaging is growing discussion of possible personnel for a second term. One name that comes up a lot, New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. NBC News cites 8 people familiar with the matter and reporting Trump and a growing number of allies have started to look more closely at her as a potential running mate. She's a killer, Trump said. Your thoughts? Amanda.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to play some tape. Here's the thing. Trump wants to create excitement in this race, and him doing this sort of pageant-style presentation of maybe who am I going to nominate for BP helps him do that. That said, I do think Stefanik is a real contender. When Chris Christie was talking in his concession speech last week about Republicans that put their ambition ahead of decision-making, like that is Elise Stefanik in bright flashing lights in the way that she has had such a heel turn in her demeanor and career through the Trump years. And so, I think that is very likely her name will get pressed. But here's what I'm really worried about. As we continue down this path of the Trump versus Biden matchup, which really doesn't excite a lot of people, there's going to be more emphasis on the vice presidential pick. And what scares me is that there's a lot of hostility, really damaging, outrageous stuff that's said on a regular basis about Kamala Harris. And so putting that magnifying glass on her with an attack dog like Elise Stefanik could get extraordinarily ugly, chaotic, and mean in ways that Donald Trump would probably celebrate, but would continue to turn off a lot of people from the process.
Well, and Jason, I want you to weigh in on that, but I also want you to weigh in on the fact that you have the New York Times reporting Trump going about private courting of South Carolina Senator Tim Scott for an endorsement, which is relevant as we look forward to South Carolina.
Tim Scott's endorsement doesn't mean anything. It's about as valuable as when he rolled out his girlfriend at the last minute before he dropped out of the race. Nobody cares what Tim Scott thinks. He's not going to be a vice presidential pick. He was never a particularly viable candidate. This is the performance stuff that people are telling Trump to do because it sounds like it's really news. But I got to tell you, this is a key thing that's both dangerous to Donald Trump and dangerous to Joe Biden. Nobody is particularly excited about this race. We understand that democracy is at stake. We understand that Trump is an absolute danger to this country. We understand that Joe Biden is more competent. But the idea that Trump is going to create excitement by saying, hey, I might have Elise Stefanik. Nobody outside of the Republican ecosphere cares about Elise Stefanik. And if she were to go head-to-head against, look, they would have to make a mercy call in a debate between Kamala Harris and Elise Stefanik. Whatever you can say about Kamala Harris, she's definitely competent. She definitely knows how to debate. And did anyone forget how she used to tear people down when she was in the Senate? Elise Stefanik is nowhere close to being capable. So if this becomes a race about VPs, Joe Biden might as well be remeasuring the curtains in the White House because he's going to win.
Well, Amanda, I want to make sure that... Yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, I agree with a lot with what Jason said, but what concerns me is that a lot of this discussion won't happen on a debate stage. It's going to happen in forums. It's going to be the kind of smear conspiracy politics that we've all sort of witnessed since 2016. And this is sort of like the Chris Christie mistake. It's like, okay, we're going to wait until we have this moment on a debate stage and then so-and-so is going to win. No, all of this happens outside of that stage in ways that are chaotic and uncontrollable. And so that is just what I am watching in the ether, in this fringe extreme element that I fear is going to present itself.
You can tell
as a warning. I'm not saying it's right or it's okay.
I was going to say, you can tell we all came up during the early aughts when debates were still a key part of campaigns and elections. Amanda Carpenter, Jason Johnson, thank you both so much for spending some time with us. I'm going to sneak in a quick break. We'll be right back.